Well, hello everybody and welcome back to the 1860 Club. Today is a huge pleasure in Steve Molloy. Welcome, Steve.
G'day, Lee. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Steve has a unique cricketing history, going back to Brunswick, where he started his cricket, and he came across to Preston. We're going to take you through this journey of Steve's, which culminated in enormous success at Preston, where he played 8 years and made the finals 7 times, and in fact won 4 premierships. Coach of the club, captain of the club, won the batting average, won the bowling average 4 or 5 times. So quite an extraordinary history that he's had with Preston. So where did it all begin, Steve?
Well, Lee, going back many years now, but Brunswick was the club of choice. There was no such thing as junior cricket, I suppose, in my time as such. It was school cricket. But I started my juniors basically playing cricket at senior level with Brunswick. So I started when I was 12, 13. First year was played in about, filled in and subbed for a few people for my brother who was down there already playing. I mean, our family's got a strong history at Brunswick with the Molloys and the Dillons. The Dillons are my mother's side. And so, yes, and it goes way back to the pre-war days with my father's uncle, who was a long-standing cricketer at Brunswick as well. So strong family tradition and history at Brunswick. And, 12, 13 I was when I started. And first year, subbed a few games. Next year I started playing. And, and I played, I suppose, by the time I'd finished, probably close to 40 years straight of playing cricket. So, it was a long time, and thoroughly enjoyed the ride and the journey all the way.
I can imagine. Great club. You played 224 games with Brunswick.
Yes.
And therefore you would have played over a lot of seasons. And because Brunswick were in the same group as Preston, you would have played against Preston for year after year. That would have been very competitive back in those days.
Oh, absolutely, Lee. I mean, it's Preston playing Brunswick Preston with the Carlton Collingwoods, weren't they? They were. It was full on. It was. No one was going to step back, and everyone was having a red hot go from the time that I first started playing first 11 cricket, which I was about 17 or 18 when I got my first game, and it was instilled into me at the early days that Preston were the arch enemy, and if you had to beat anyone, you had to beat Preston. So it was certainly instilled in me early days, and when I came across, as I might have said it once before, I always knew that competitiveness was going to exist at Preston. So that sort of made my job easier when I came across, to be quite honest, because there was always guys, but a lot of characters you come across, and no one took a backward step on both sides, to be quite honest. So you learn a lot too in those games, I remember.
You do, yes. Tell me just a couple of your highlights at Brunswick over so many games.
I suppose the biggest highlight I had was being able to play and learn the game of cricket from some absolute legends of sub-district cricket, and guys that had come back from Premier and first 11 cricket. So, the guys like, my first captain in the seconds was a guy by the name of Lindsay Knox, who was ex-Carlton, and Knocker taught us a hell of a lot about the game in terms of the mental side of the game. Well, Knocker wasn't super fit guy, but he certainly was. He understood the game really well. And then when I progressed to the first 11, I mean, so many good players that were playing, but the Blair Hillhouses was my first captain at first 11, and such a wonderful player Blair was.
He was.
And then John Swanson, of course, Nookie, he was just awesome to play with, awesome to learn from. He'd give you a clip across the year if you didn't do the right thing either. very competitive cricketer, but such a humble man too. And then there was the Rod Brownings and the John Mulligans and the Jeff Turners, guys that were a bit younger than Blair and Nook, but they were establishing themselves and well-established sub-district first 11 players. And then there was the Paul McGinty's, whose record, I think him and Eddie Ruttenfeld's, they're probably in the top 3 wicket takers, 4 or 5 wicket takers within subbies. So learned a lot off Paul. I mean, they could never bowl an outswinger, Paul, but everything went in, and he always found a way of getting wickets. So he taught me, I suppose, what he taught me, even though he bowled right, and he taught me how to hold the ball, I think. So that was probably the main highlight on reflection. Personally, I made 300s in a row in 3 games. When I'd come back from Essendon, I'd had a funny sort of a start, and then it clicked after Christmas, and I got 300s in a row against. So that was a highlight. Didn't play any premierships at Brunswick. We knocked on the door a lot, played in a lot of finals, but just couldn't seem to get over the line. And I think to this day, their last premiership is still 87, 88. So it's quite a while ago. But yeah, a lot of highlights and too many to cover off here, I suppose. But yeah.
What was the story of you coming across across Sydney Road to Preston? How did that come about?
Well, it was interesting. I'd 92, 93, I'd coached Brunswick for the year, stepped in at the last minute. Richard McCarthy was appointed as the coach and somehow got stuck in the UK and never got back. The next year he did come across, so then I stood back and he took over the captain coaching. The year after he disappeared again, left it late, advising the club. So then I took back over again. And then, and then the following year, which was the 95, 96 year, a guy by the name of Trevor Plumridge was keen to do the job, and I was asked. He was a good player, just coming back from district cricket or Premier cricket, so as much as I felt like I didn't want to relinquish the job, it just happened that way, and then as it turned out, I had a really poor season to the point where I was actually, I think the only time I ever really got dropped at Brunswick was that season. So, and then I had a phone call at the end of the season. I think I had a phone call. Steve Harvey gave me a call, and Dave Norris. So I met with those guys and threw it out there. I wasn't too sure how serious Preston were. I was having doubts about being able to perform. I was getting to that stage. I was mid-30s. I was thinking, well, am I still able to do this? Anyway, they were insistent, and then I met with Dick, and just said, look, we'll come across. We'll give it a crack. That's how I came across. As I said earlier, Lee, what I always knew was going to happen was that if I come across, there'd be an element of competitiveness that Preston have displayed, and as I said before, I played against for many years. But going across and leading the club, coming from the arch enemy, there was some apprehension, of course. But no, look, it's and I'm sure there was apprehension on both sides. But as time evolved, and I'm a highly competitive person myself, as I said, it's been instilled in me from a young age, and I suppose with the recruitment of a few guys that come across, and Darren Portou, a young guy by the name of Darren Portou, followed me across from Brunswick, who one of his day was an awesome player. And then I think Jeff King came back to the club. So, and it was just, the timing was quite right, I think. And it was good for me because I needed a break and a change, and then my cricket improved again. So it worked out really well. So, yeah.
It certainly did, because it's looked back fondly as being part of the golden era of the club.
Indeed. You
played there 8 years, made finals 7 times and 4 flags, and played with some absolute incredible players. Just to name a few: Gamanai Pereira, De Silva, Kevin Lowe, Sean Brown, just to name a few. All of those have got incredible records. So how competitive was the team, in terms of its fight, never lie down?
Oh, well, I think it's like anything, you start off, you get a new group of guys together, and, talent is one thing, takes you a fair way, talent, but you've also got to bond as a team. And, I think it's been said, I've listened to a few of these and seen a few of these interviews you've done since the club's commenced, Lee, and everyone sort of says the same thing. It takes a whole lot of characters, and there's some interesting characters that you come across in cricket. And the beauty about cricket, I suppose, is that you can be a professional or you can be a plumber or whatever. It doesn't matter what your background is. You're a group of blokes that are, endeavouring to achieve the same goals. And I think that's the beauty about cricket over other team sports, to be quite honest, is that, and it's a close knit. So competitiveness, we were fortunate. All the guys were pretty strong competitors. And when you had guys like Dale Carpenter and the two Harvey boys, and Peter Cawthon running around in the seconds as well, guys that had experienced that competitiveness themselves in their own journeys, and still playing and wanting to commit. It made my job easier. It was just about moulding it and bonding it and getting the guys to then play for each other and play for the team. And I think that's what happened. I think before I got there, this season before, I think was probably, the Bull Ants had probably one of their worst seasons in terms of where they finished on the ladder. But, that's not everything, because there was some work done previously that set some basis or some foundations in place, with some of the younger guys like, Shane Baker and Brett Cole, to name a couple that sort of were just starting to make their way into first 11 cricket as well. So once the competitiveness was there, and we just seemed to find a will to win, and no matter what the conditions, we just kept backing ourselves. And I think that was the first year, and I think all through my 8 seasons, I don't think we strayed away from that too much at all. Yeah. We were always competing and never lying down. If we were beaten by a better side on the day, so be it. But by hell, we were making sure we were going to give them a run for their money, no matter what
never over.
Was.
It was never over until it was over.
No, correctly. Yeah. So, yeah.
You had 5 seasons where you won the bowling average, including in premiership years. And when you look at the statistics around that, you had 26 at 10.81 in 2003-04, and you had a pretty ordinary year in 99, 2000, where you went at 23 at 14. So tell us a little bit about your bowling. You bowled left hand, medium pace. How did you approach your bowling? What were your strengths?
Okay. I love bowling, even from a young boy. I love being in the game. So the all-rounder part, I was never going to be a wicket keeper. I saw my father was a wicket keeper, and I don't think he could ever wicket keep. And I know you were, Lee, so it was a tough gig. But bowling, loved the bowl. I think being left-handed was always an advantage. There was the first few years across with the Bull Ants, I didn't bowl that much. I must admit, Moose was bowling. We had Timmy Jessel come across and bowl. Shane Baker was making his own journey, as I said, and he was a left-hand bowler as well. So, and then we had a few spinners, which Pereira and De Silva, which certainly assisted. But so I didn't bowl a lot those first few years. And then when Dale retired, we basically needed someone to bowl into the wind. And as much as when I did bowl a bit at Brunswick, I did mainly bowl into the wind anyway. So I wasn't super quick. I mean, I was a bit more of a skidder actually because of my height. I probably couldn't, but I always had the ability to move the ball, even from a young age. So, a left-hander, pitch the ball up, and get the wrist in the right position behind the ball, and I could move the ball. So that was always an advantage that I had. So, and I learnt that from a young age as well. A guy I forgot to mention at Brunswick, Peter Daffy, who a few guys would have played against. He was pretty quick as well, as we know, and he taught me some tricks of the trade in the early days as well. But being able to move the ball, and I've always believed, if you, particularly with the new ball, my job was to, in opening partnerships later on, particularly with Stewie Hensley. He had the pace and bowled downwind, and my job was to make sure that I'd kept guys, at the crease, and of course, at my pace, people would try to probably go after me a bit, and so I probably got the benefit of the hard work that Stewie was doing at the other end, to be quite honest. So,